Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
And so this week, Abby has decided that she wants to take some ownership for how she was wrong about something.
I was wondering where this was going.
What's that?
I was wondering where this was going.
So, Abby, I know that it's probably a big piece of humble pie to have this conversation right now. But I'm sure our listeners would love to hear you eat some humble pie. So,
okay.
Yeah?
I was wrong.
What? Say wrong?
I was wrong. I can own it a million times. I was wrong.
What you're wrong about? Huh?
Yeah, we were talking about your joy of jumping into our cold pool in the mornings.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I definitely said that I didn't think the pool was as cold as our friend's ice bath.
Okay. Yeah, you did.
And then talked to said friend.
After that same day, after recording. And what did said friend say?
That it was as cold as his ice bath.
Mm-hmm. How cold did you say his ice bath was?
Was it between 45 and 50?
About 48 to 50 degrees.
Yep.
Well, we love being correct here at the Connect Life podcast because we are truth tellers and we like truth to be known. So I just like that you probably feel good about telling truth.
You know, here's the truth. I do feel good about it. I actually love reality so much and accuracy so much that I really like it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I like it too. I mean, like, I love it. That was fantastic. So, what are we going to talk about today?
You're hysterical. You are loving your life over there.
I totally am.
And I ate it as soon as he told us, too. I said, you were right. I said it in private also.
And now you can shout it from the mountaintops publicly.
You were right. You were right.
You don't have shame. Look at that. That's so cool. This is what a shame-free lifestyle is like.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have shame. I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad about being wrong.
It felt good. It felt good to get it on.
It doesn't feel like I'm wrong a lot, so it feels like I can take it for the team when I am.
The few times I have to be wrong.
Every once in a while, I guess. It'll be fine.
That's so fun. Well, today we want to have a conversation. So let me back up. Oftentimes I've seen commercials that are like, treat yourself. And then it's like, come to our spa.
Oh, yeah.
Buy our ice cream bars. Treat yourself.
Oh, totally. Mm-hmm. I teach a class here called Loving Yourself Well, which is like my co-teacher came up with it, Carl. He says loving yourself like well, like you're doing a good job of it, but also like loving yourself into wellness. Yeah, funny. Anyway, I've taught that class for like 10 years here. And without fail, every time we ask, like, what does loving yourself look like? And so many of the answers are like spa day, buy yourself something. Mani-pedi. Get a massage, take a day off. And those are all good things. It's not that they eat chocolate, do nothing all day, veg on the couch, and all of those things. It's not that those aren't love. Yeah. They're not the core root of what self-love is and comes from. And I do think we have a culture right now that there is a loving yourself movement.
Yeah, there's been one for a little while now.
Mm-hmm. But again, a lot of the ways they say to love yourself don't actually feel and heal the disconnection issue. No. It's this false external thing that we kind of buy into. And we're like, I think about the treat yourself thing. I think I heard that one time from an ice cream commercial or something like that, or Dove or Dove chocolate or something like that. But I'm like, oh yeah, so I'm being trained that loving myself well is just smashing sugar into my face and getting a quick dopamine hit. Totally. Right? Or it's I'm completely
disconnecting from everyone and everything.
Yeah.
So a spa day in itself is not bad to have a moment of like, oh, my body needed some
100%.
self-care. I even did that for a season. Every week I was getting massages and actually connecting to my body and things like that. But literally, like, it's escapism, right? For a lot of people, it's the concept of go here to this place where you don't have to think about any of your life, disconnect from all of it and escape it.
Yeah.
And so it's not even self-care, because it's not actually looking at what is happening in my life and being present with myself enough to get love and care to myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That feels really true. I think that it'd be helpful to talk through, when we're talking about self-care, the kind of care, and one of the things I talk about in my class is the goal of self-care is so that you don't have to have a spa day every week.
Yeah. You don't have to go on a huge hiatus from your kids and your spouse.
Well,
and
you
run
might
away.
need that.
I'm not saying occasionally, but I'm saying like,
if you're doing
I'm leaving the family.
Self-care. Well, if you're doing consistent self-care, you don't have to escape your life. And the goal would be that you're doing self-care enough that escaping your life isn't the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you're enjoying and being present with your life because there's enough self-care that's happening.
Yeah. So we want to talk about some of the ways that we see get the most, like, I think we're all about results is one of the things I would say. And so I'm looking at if
you mean humanity is all about results, or
I actually just meant you and me.
Me.
In the sense that, like, I'm looking for what ways can I love myself that will actually impact that need in my soul.
Right. It'll actually yield a result.
Yeah. So I'm like, if I can do 5 spa days and still feel soul tired.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for what are the consistent things I can do so that my soul is getting care all the time.
So it's not living in a place of burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump into our list. Do you want to start?
Yeah. Let's talk about connecting to yourself. And connecting to yourself to me is, different from just time with yourself. Mm-hmm. Connecting to yourself is a pause on life, where you're sitting there and you're going, what is actually happening inside of me? What am I really feeling? What am I feeling about my work? What am I feeling about my relationships? What am I feeling about friendships? What am I feeling about my dreams? Where there's just a sense of self-awareness that's happening, and you're not even judging any of that. A lot of times that time connecting with yourself, people do that, but they do it in self-destructive manners.
Yeah. I'm bad because I feel this.
So they look at everything and go into a judgment shame spiral, which is, again, why oftentimes we don't connect to ourselves. Because when we look at our lives, then we have the monster of shame and judgment over our shoulder being a monster. And we're like, I'm just failing at life. I'm terrible, whatever. And so this idea of connecting with yourself is this simple, restful, compassionate, non-judgmental, investigative look to understand and to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely one of the things I think most important in self-care is that self-connection. And I think that this is an art that not very many people have. Like, I know a lot of people who they would say, like, the way that they love themselves is they listen to podcasts all the time, or and I think there's something to be said for having an internal world that is your hobby, or like I read books all the time, or I do. And I actually think those are really valuable.
And we'll get into talking even about some of that stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But what we're talking about is that time where you can be with you. If you can't be with yourself, then it means you're actually running on a hamster wheel inside your heart.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that we can get self-care is when we actually are restful inside of our own being. And I know for me, like, I've started to notice this. When I start to have anxiety, I'll start to notice, like, the actual feeling in my body, like my chest will tighten up, and I shake my legs a lot when I have anxiety, and there's like a million things that are going on physically. And I will literally visualize me on a hamster wheel running on the inside, like just going, I'm running from my fears, my thoughts, my concerns, my shame, my whatever it is. And I'm often trying to get to, like, what if I just go sit next to that girl so she doesn't have to be running, and find out what's really going on. Okay. Oh, you feel afraid. Okay. I'm just going to sit with her. I'm not trying to fix her. I'm not trying to
there's
make
no
her go
advice
away.
being thrown at her.
I'm not like so much of us are trying to fix pain or get out of pain.
Yeah.
And when we're trying to fix or get out of pain, we're not connecting to ourselves. And I have found that I feel less pain the more I can connect to myself. Mm-hmm. People think that if you connect to yourself, that means all you'll ever do is feel pain. And I don't think that's true.
No, the more that I connected to myself, I started being like, oh, these are the things that I love and that I want and what I'm enjoying. And I get connected to, it's easy to be disconnected in a way that you're not even aware that you're happy.
Yes.
That you're excited about something, that you're enjoying a relationship. You're just kind of going through the motions. And you're like, I didn't even stop long enough to let myself feel the joy of that experience that was happening.
Totally.
So there can even be victories in your life, big ones, big wins that maybe suddenly you have. And because you're living a disconnected life, you're passing through them and you look back like maybe 6 months later and you're like, I didn't even celebrate that. That was a monumentous thing to stop and be part of. And so this is kind of what Abby's talking about, is being able to stop and get connected to even the good things, because it's not just a world of pain inside.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that even for me, sometimes I'll sit and think about what I'm grateful for. I'll sit and think about how far I've come. There's like, I can be with myself in like love and joy. I can sit and think about, sometimes I feel connected to myself if I'm like recognizing that I'm feeling like I'm on the hamster wheel. Mm-hmm. That happens a lot to me. I feel like an internal panic. And so then I'll just, I'll sit and be with that girl, or I'll start thinking of a memory where I felt really safe or where I felt really loved, and I'm just spending time like internally connected to myself.
I think that again, highlighting the idea that you connect with goodness deliberately. Yep. Part of connecting to yourself is connecting to places of goodness inside of your life.
Yeah, things I'm grateful for, the good feelings I'm experiencing. If something helps me feel loved, I think about that so that I'm connecting to those emotions.
I lived a lifestyle in a lot of ways where I didn't look at any of my pain. And so and there are some people that cope by not looking at any of their pain, by just seeing all the good stuff, mm-hmm. right? And every conversation we have on this podcast is nuanced based on where are you at inside of your journey. What extremism are you inside of?
It's so true.
But there are a lot of people that when they connect internally, it's only the negative things. Yeah. And part of it is I am able to create a balanced inner world where I spend time in the pain and I spend time in the pleasure, mm-hmm. where I'm able to go in there. And I think that like there was a season where part of my healing process and really taking care of Justin was sitting down and bringing to the table all the good things, all the good relationships, all the ways people were loving me, all the ways that I was succeeding. And it created a space where I felt like I was thriving. And I was able to even participate in the pain process, not in a hopeless manner any longer, but in a very hopeful manner, because I saw the abundance of goodness and love that was actually extended to me. And I was aware of the care that was being extended to me through the world around me. And then when I visited those places of pain, they didn't feel so terrible. I was like, oh yeah, they're real. And I can coat them with the love and care that I can feel, and they can coexist together.
Then you have some people who only live in a happy world in their head.
Oh, yeah.
And
big plastic smiles.
Yes. And so for those people, it's spending time actually like, what is the pain going on underneath mm-hmm. the surface? What is actually, and I think if I was to describe self-care, it's being connected to yourself.
The full self. So it's getting rid of where you're compartmentalizing and spending time. And I have a lot of friends who it's not their natural nature to feel their feelings or be with themselves. So they literally put a spot in the calendar. Yeah. I know. I have lots of friends who, like, one of my friends takes a bath every Sunday, and that's her time to feel. Mm. She just sits and feels. My baths are part of my self-care. Yeah. I actually get in the bath and I'm sitting there and I'm letting myself be fully present. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you take the time to feel, which I think, so she lets herself feel there. Pizzi, when she needs to feel, goes for a walk and puts music on, and that's how she connects down into what's going on inside of her. Mm-hmm. I have friends, some of my guy friends who are avid outdoorsmen, mm-hmm. and they had histories where they went to the outdoors to get lost mm-hmm. completely. Like they would disconnect from themselves into it. But in their balanced state, they go out into the outdoors and they find themselves being like, oh, I let everything get peaceful. And I was just there with God and nature. And then I started actually getting honest in that space where there was nothing to pull from me.
Yeah.
No phones, no requirements. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really big deal. And the quieting is, again, a terrifying thing for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they don't know what to do with themselves. They don't know what to do with being alone with themselves.
Yeah. That ability to, like sometimes for me, I just put on some good music and journal. Or sometimes for me, there's so many ways that you can do it. But the concept is spending time to personally connect to yourself. Sometimes I'm reading. Sometimes it's just being where I'm in a place. I'm just sitting present. Like I could be staring at the sunset, listening to some music and just noticing what I'm feeling in that moment. I think being present is a way that we can love ourselves. Because if we're in the past or the future, it often has anxiety. But in the present, we can be like, what is the temperature right now? What does it feel like to have the wind blowing? And it's something to help you be like, the more in our bodies and the more connected to our emotions we are, then the safer we feel, the more rest we get, the more joy we experience.
It's interesting because I think that there were a lot more opportunities for people to be present with themselves in many ways along throughout the day prior to the invention of cell phones.
I know.
Because I even remember, again, I loved the world without cell phones. I'm glad I grew up as part of the generation that didn't have it in their hands, because I know what it is to be outside the matrix.
Totally.
Because there was a sense of, say if you got a flat tire and you're getting the tire fix suddenly, your life just went on pause.
Totally.
You're not scrolling on a phone. You're just sitting there. You all of a sudden, timeout happens. Scrolling is not something that I can go jump into and escape a moment.
Oh, I remember that in grocery store lines.
Yeah.
We used to have lines because there wasn't instant checkout. But then also, like, I wasn't scrolling on my phone. I was just being present. I was noticing the people around me. I was having conversations with people.
I'd have conversations in my head about like, oh, what do I, and all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, I think I'm feeling sad today. Or I would get joyful watching someone, and then I would even interact with the world around me.
Totally.
Right.
Yep.
So, but one of the things is that people, when they have downtime, they suddenly go into a tech world, and like scrolling all of a sudden. And you even inside of that space get bombarded with so many emotions, whether it's people blowing up in comment threads or whether it's memes that are provoking, and you're never getting able to really get out of fight or flight or get out of this all-consuming space if you're scrolling. And then so I think that that's just a practical thing. When I have a moment that feels like downtime, just putting my phone down. If you don't know how to spend time with yourself, just like the next time I'm in line at the store, I do not scroll. The next time I'm sitting waiting for someone, I do not scroll. I just sit. Yeah. Simple. It could be 3 minutes that you're having that experience, but you start training yourself to be present. Yeah. Yeah. I think that going back to, we talked last week about the joke we made when we started this, which was me getting into the pool every morning. But it requires so much being present with yourself. You have to you can't be thinking about a to-do list because you're having to regulate your body and your mind to stay inside of that space. And to me, it's like this really incredibly powerful exercise. And sometimes people start off their mornings with cold showers in order to just get them present, like the practice of being present. Yeah.
And that's why people do breath work and certain working out types, because they're working on being present, and we're looking for a lifestyle of balance. If you're really good with being by yourself, learning how to be with other people, is really powerful. And it's that balance, but it's what is my natural thing and how am I connecting to myself? I know for me, and we'll talk about hobbies in a little bit, but like I really connect to myself in nature.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to be present. And
I used to go to the ocean when I lived in LA all the time. Yeah. And I would just late at night and I would just listen to the powerful sound of the ocean crashing on the shore. And all of a sudden I was fully in that space, fully with myself, fully with nature.
Yeah.
It's such a cool feeling.
It is very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So next way to love ourselves.
How about understanding and respecting our limitations? So I want to boundaries, self-life boundaries. I want to talk about limitations. First off, there's this guy, David, what's his name? David Gonin or something I was learning about the other day. But he's this really crazy, high-performing, high achiever that came out of crazy abusive situations and being incredibly overweight, and then learning how to use his brain and his mind capacity to change his entire life. So he has a life that feels externally successful and acceptable now, and a lot of people are wowed by what he was able to do. But at the same time, he's his whole thing is, I'm breaking every limitation that exists inside of our life. But at the same time, he's ran over his heart. When I look at his story, I go, oh, but you don't actually have points where you stop and go, hey, I actually need rest. I actually need care and stuff like that. And so again, when we're talking about the two extremisms, there are some people that their whole life is a lifestyle of limitations.
Yeah.
Right? They live inside of that. But there's a lot of people that are living in performance in the way that they relate to friends and work, and there's no limitations whatsoever, and they're in a role of burnout. And we have to be able to begin to ask, when was my soul tapping out? Because I notice that a lot of times when I'm not aware of my own limitations, I am way more grumpy and frustrated and aggressive towards situations. And I'm sure a lot of people out there can be like, oh yeah, I'm grumpy all the time. Why am I grumpy all the time? It's because of my kids. It's because of my spouse. It's because of my work and my boss. No, it's because there's not limitations that you're setting and going like, hey, I feel really exhausted going out tonight and going to that next party or that next, trying to help my friends tonight move after a long week worth of full of stuff. I'm going to break myself, and my soul is screaming at me. And usually that anger and that frustration is our soul yelling at us, hey, I am being overworked. I need you to set some limitations. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there is, we all want to be superhuman, and being busy feels good.
Yeah, it does.
Like it's actually a trauma response. It's a coping mechanism. Flight is like, the busier you are, the less connected you are to your feelings. You can compartmentalize with busyness. And so many of us are trying to avoid our real lives, or what's going on inside of us. And so busy. I do this. I'm not trying to like call people out. I'm like, and it's a funny thing because I'm either sick where I can't escape my life at all, or I feel good enough to be so busy that I can push through everything. And so I'm trying to learn the balance to not have to do those two extremes. But the concept is we like being distracted. And sometimes there's this self-worth that we get from the more we do, the more valuable we are, or the busier we are, the more we feel good about ourselves. And it's a false sense of love because it's a performing driven mentality. And so the ability to have limitations, to first of all say, I don't have to be the best mom, the best employee of everything. I don't have to be good at everything. I don't have to be able to be busy all the time. I don't have to be able to, like, comparison kills people in this way. And so they feel so much pressure. I don't have to be a Pinterest birthday party person. You know what I mean? It's that idea of allowing yourself to have limitations. I think Pizzi's really good at this. She's like, yeah, I mean, we just don't have the capacity for this in our life right now. So we can't do it. Yeah. It just is what it is. And limitations are sad. Nobody likes limitations. We all want the freedom to be and do whatever we want, however we want. Sickness has done that for me, has created a lot of limitations. And that's why I've been working, and I see this with other people, like sickness can become the boundaries we don't have naturally. And the goal is to learn for us to learn how to embrace limitations and have limitations and value ourselves within limitations.
You know, I think about times signs of when you're not respecting your limitations, you know, and when all of a sudden I can feel like a weird type of frustration or resentment at an individual who's just said like, hey, can we have a phone call and stuff? And I'm like, why are you asking me for a phone call? Oh yeah, right now I am overwhelmed with stuff and I am not communicating enough to the world around me the no's that I need. Like, hey, I don't have space for that. And I've been saying yes way too often. And so now I'm randomly feeling resentful at people wanting anything, a text message or whatever. And so I've given myself permission to be like, hey, you're going to disappoint some people. You're going to do the best that you know how to show up with people, but it's okay if they're frustrated or disappointed as long as you communicate, hey, I don't have capacity for that. I would love to be able to, but I don't have capacity for it.
Yeah. And boundaries in every way. It's a really big gift.
How about this one? Time with people who love you. I think that that's such a huge thing. So actually being deliberate about putting people around us that are loving and caring. I remember that it used to feel very awkward, especially when I was younger, to be around people who were enjoying me. I'm like, what are their intentions? What do they actually want from me? Right? But the truth is the more that we can become comfortable with people who are kind and loving and invested and not always beyond that teetering on mistrust with everyone, because that's something a lot of people have, is that if I give myself over to connected relationships, they're going to use it, abuse it, betray, whatever. There's a lot of fear inside of that. But if you can ease into relationships that are like that, it's so wonderful and impacting and invigorating.
Yeah, I think for me, it's one of the ways it helps me connect to myself. When I'm around people who love me, it helps me engage in love. It helps me engage in peace. My nervous system is a little bit more regulated. Like I calm down around people who love me. We're all built for connection. And so it's important to find friends that you feel safe enough with, that you can let your guards down, that you find friends that you feel safe enough with, that you love. Yeah. And they love you. Well, one of the things I was saying is vulnerability with people you love is one of the ways to love yourself. So like actually I'll let my friends know I'm feeling a lot of anxiety about this, or I'm feeling really scared about this. Have intimacy is one of the ways to fill up your love tanks. Yeah. And it's funny because intimacy is like a lost art. We should do a whole podcast on just intimacy. The lost art of intimacy. Yeah. And I'm talking about intimacy, just emotional connection tanks. Yeah. So when I share with one of my best friends, I'm feeling vulnerable, like I'm failing at this. They can love me in that need, in that. And I think that part of loving ourselves is allowing ourselves to be seen for who we really are. So that when people love us, we can actually be receiving that love. Yeah. There's a lot of times that we create relationships that are very toxic. So we're in cycles of toxic relationships, cycles of toxic relationships. And so every time you're engaging a toxic relationship as a lifestyle and there's not love present, that self-care, like there's not a filling up, there's not a rejuvenation that's taking place inside of that. You're surviving what feels like a war over and over again. And ultimately, if you imagine your heart as a little child, like you keep looking at this little child and saying like, hey, that person that's constantly like not kind and not loving and not caring and doesn't even think about you at all, I'm going to shove you into their world and make you spend all this time with them over and over again. The kid's like, I don't like it. I don't like that relationship. I don't like how they're constantly speaking down to me and condescending and criticizing me all the time. And I know a lot of people that will stay long-term inside of relationships where there's this critical, judgmental friendship that never acknowledges the needs or the wants or anything else of the other person. And so you're just taking the kid and going, hey, go be neglected more. Hey, go be judged more. Hey, go be criticized more. And that, again, we wouldn't call that caring for a child. Yeah. If you were to actually do that to a real child. Yeah. And it's the more you receive love from people, the more you're actually able to engage that towards yourself. the more you love yourself, the more you can receive love from people. The more you receive love from people, the more you can love yourself. It's like this beautiful circle. And so, and genuine connection helps me connect to myself.
Yeah.
And that I think is a better definition of self-care, which is being able to connect to ourselves. And so when I am around people, I let them see my weaknesses. I share my vulnerabilities with them. And then I allow them to, affect me. I allow their love to matter to me. Allow myself to have needs with my friends.
Yeah.
You know, I allow them to meet my needs. It's not all self-sufficiency. I also don't think that it's that thing in balance. I'm not trying to get all my needs met through people. I'm not trying to make my friends always meet my needs.
On another note, I want to jump into the conversation about hobbies. So hobbies, I think, are really a vital part of the journey of self-care. A lot of times people don't even know what they enjoy. They don't have any sense of hobbies. It's I go to work, I go to the bar, I
clean my house.
Whatever. It's just kind of like existing from moment to moment instead of being like, what do I really enjoy? Are there things, because we never even take time to explore the things that we might really enjoy. I think about my grandfather on this, like in all his shortcomings, he had this beautiful hobby of building stuff. He loved ironwork and woodwork. So he was always trying to build stuff. So you'd always find him later hours in the evening back down at the workshop, and he would just be building a new table or something. And you could see that it was his therapeutic place where he would just be enjoying something. And there would be a smile that would be on his face, and he'd be like, look what I just built and look how this works. And there was just pleasure inside of him, inside of that space. And I think that that's part of connecting to our childlike wonder, is the kid inside of us loves to create.
Yeah.
And loves to explore and do new things. And I think that we can find an identity out of hobbies, which can be destructive, right? Anything out of balance can be, not helpful.
Yeah.
But when I talk about identity, I mean, I know some guys that they get so high performance inside of their hobby that it's all about like, look what I did. I'm performing. No longer it's a joy. It's unto the approval of others. But when I think about hobbies, the most therapeutic forms of them, it's where there is no competition. It's not unto like selling this product. I know that like when I did my writing and stuff and growing up and going through film school, everyone was utilizing their creativity unto something else.
Sure.
Right. It was, hey, I'm creating because I'm going to make money off of this. And then they actually lost any sense of joy or pleasure out of the process. But when they're just like, I'm just creating for me. I'm just doing this for me. No one may ever see it. No one may ever get it. I think of, wasn't it an Olympian recently during the Olympics where they were knitting?
Yes. 100%. It's like low stakes, non-competitive while they're spending their whole life competing.
I don't care. No one's ever going to buy this. I'm not out to sell it.
Totally.
I'm just over here in my own low stakes place.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many different reasons that hobbies fill our souls. I mean, I like competitive hobbies, like playing volleyball for me is competitive, but it's still a hobby that is getting me present. Yeah. It's getting me in my body. It's getting me moving. All of that kind of stuff is really.
And I watch when you do that with people, you come back so alive. There's this sense of endorphin highs of like, yeah, we had so much fun and we laughed and we were competing in a playful way. And
totally.
All of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And being in nature, I think the idea is looking for things that bring you life. Like I know this is a funny hobby, but one of my friends washes their truck every week. And they love it. It's therapeutic for them to vacuum out their car and wash it and feel like something in their life is in control.
I used to do that back in the day.
Yeah. And I think like you can have all kinds of hobbies. I think in some seasons watching football every Sunday was a hobby, and it's like people are coming over and we're doing it together and then going on hikes, being in nature. Like there's so many things. It's finding things that bring you life, not trying to find things outside of just TV and technology.
Yes, death to entertainment.
No, I mean, I love all of those things. And we watch TV shows
We
and
do.
we love them, and we watch movies and we love them. And I scroll on Instagram and feel horrible afterwards, but I still do it because I'm addicted, and I'm still processing our conversation with Stephanie, who was not on social media. But the concept is finding things outside, like reading is a great hobby. It like there's different things that pull you in different ways to, And that's what we're saying. Variation of how to connect to yourself.
All right. What's the next one? I'll go.
I was like, I don't know.
How you choose to eat, sleep, and pace your life. So part of caring for yourself is being deliberate about how we eat. Let's just talk about that for a second. Actual self-care, like I'll watch people who are gorging themselves in unhealthy foods, and it's not a shameful conversation. It's just, hey, are you actually caring for your body? Are you caring for your mind when you're participating in that? And I know that a lot of people, in order to eat quote unquote healthy, it takes a lot of extra effort to learn how to do that. And they're like, oh, it just feels so exhausting to learn how to do that. But really, when we say, hey, that just feels so exhausting, it's saying, I really don't care about myself.
Yeah.
I don't care about my long-term well-being. I'm cool right now because I don't have type 2 diabetes in this moment, or I'm not currently having a heart attack in this moment. So I'm just going to live as is and not fully show up to life right in front of me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to like breeze through it. And then when it hits, I'll go into panic about all of it and hate that it's happening. But self-care begins with long-term thinking about myself, and even in the area of eating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and eating, is an interesting one with self-care because it's coming from balance. If you are so strict, I teach this in the class I teach on loving yourself well. Loving yourself well is taking into account what angle you're coming from. Yeah. So if you're very, very, very strict on how you eat, learning how to relax a little bit can be loving yourself
occasionally.
Yeah. And then if you're really, really relaxed, learning how to have some self-control.
Like I live off Mountain Dew and eat candy bars for lunch all the time.
That sounds so nice. But the concept is that we are aware of what we need for balance. I think about that even with working out. Like, for some people, working out is loving themselves. For some people, taking a day off working out is loving themselves.
Yeah, I knew someone that was so addicted to working out and what they would get from it that it was to the point of tormenting their soul, right? And then once they finally stopped, they ended up gaining a ton of weight in their process. Yeah. Because what ended up happening is they were so imbalanced on one side. It wasn't this balance walk of like...
It wasn't something they could sustainably do. And
it became an addiction rather than self-care. And once anything crosses over into addiction, it's no longer self-care.
Yeah. It's not helping you. And I think that people like to just label things good or bad. Like working out is always good. It's always self-care. Or eating healthy is always good. It's always we like to put things in boxes. Yeah. And we're saying everything's so much more nuanced. So how you're doing it in your soul. If you're working out and hating yourself while you're working out, that's not self-care. No. If you're and that's then what people do is like, then I'm never working out again. And the idea is to figure out the balance of
stop
how do I
extremism.
Yeah, stop extremism. How do I work out a normal amount? And how do I take care of my body? And how do I like myself while I'm working out, not turn against it? And part of that is sleep. Am I going to bed? Am I setting boundaries on like taking care? I feel better. And the idea of self-care is learning what makes you feel good and then making choices to guard that. Yeah. So for like sleep, it's like, oh, I feel better if I go to sleep here, and I like feeling
function
good.
better when I get this amount of rest. I know some people that will sleep 12 hours a day, and that's actually not healthy at all for them. They're
like because of the depression lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a depression lifestyle, and it's constantly just not engaging life, not getting up and participating in anything, and that's way out of balance. Whereas the other person who's like, I'm running on 4 hours of sleep every night, and I barely even take a chance to rest. That's another extremism. But self-care is finding that balanced place.
Yeah, what is it that my body needs, and how do I give it what it needs so that I can feel good?
Yeah.
It's kind of reverse engineering. Like I feel best when I'm eating a certain way. I feel best when I'm sleeping a certain way. So how do I make those decisions to feel proactive in my life, to be creating a space where I get to feel good all the time?
Right. And that's the concept of pace. I'm pacing my life. I'm pacing the way I eat. I'm pacing the way I do relationships. You're setting a pace, and pace creates longevity again.
Yeah. And sustainability. I was at work yesterday at one of my jobs where I consult at the Adventure Challenge. And we were talking about pacing for the things that we're doing next year. And we made a decision to not do something because we knew that pace would kill everyone. Mm-hmm. If we did that many projects in a year, it would kill people.
It's interesting because one of the conversations you and I had, Living Fully Alive, we moved back to the March start date and the launch of signups in January. Whereas before, historically, we launched that in November, the signups, and then it would start right at the beginning of the year. So you had something to jump into. And, based on the way that we had structured everything, it would be natural to keep doing it again this year.
Yeah.
And part of the conversation that we had was about pace.
Yeah.
And even Pace of My Soul and some of the things we've launched, and I've especially done this year mm-hmm. and said, hey, I know that for me, and you brought it up, and I'd already been contemplating it internally, but you're like, I really think you should consider, and you brought it up twice, not doing LFA. And the first time I was like kind of a little resistant to it internally because I was like, no, I feel fine. It's not really that difficult for me to launch. I know I have things inside of it, but I found myself being like, what does my heart really need? And I'm like, if I put that extra thing on my plate, I'm going to add a stressor that's unnecessary. I'm going to be way out of balance. And that goes against the grain of what we are all about, both in the connected life and the work that we do. Yeah. And even as a leader, I want to lead through actions, not just through do what I say, not what I do, but like, hey, I actually want to figure out how to consistently be an example in my behaviors. And I could feel my soul just so relaxed and be like, yeah, I can totally start working on that in January and move that through in March. That feels realistic to me.
Yeah. And that's the goal, is that we're looking at our lives and what is realistic for us. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right. Because we could have done it. We can push. Me and you can push. Mm-hmm. We can push through shit. Yeah, that's why we've survived so much. Mm-hmm. We learned how to push,
but just
and have grit.
Yes,
but that grit can be detrimental.
It can be. Some of y'all out there need to hear that just because you can doesn't mean you should. You're worthy and valuable, and you're going to be safe. Like so much of us, we're constantly trying to earn security or safety or protection or to feel lovable or worthy. And so we're going. And we actually need the ability to, so let's move on. I didn't mean to, but pacing is important. I was thinking about vacations. We're about to go on a vacation, and vacations are those things. They did this study. Some companies do endless vacation days. Like you can take as many as you want a year.
Really?
And they have found that people take less vacations.
Because they feel the freedom to?
They feel the freedom to, and most people are just workaholics. They just don't plan that into their lives. And so companies save a lot of money giving endless vacation days, which is hysterical.
Well, they don't. It's not paid vacation, but they're like, hey, you can vacation as much as you want, unpaid vacation.
Unpaid? No, it's paid vacation.
Oh, really?
You have to still get your job done, so you have goals. So you can't you can't
miss goals.
You can't miss your deadlines.
Right.
But you can take as much time off as you want.
Right.
But people don't use it. And so it's the idea of vacations and time off and spa days. We're not anti that. We're saying that's not the main source, but you've got to be looking at, are we making sure that we're taking time away? Even if it's camping, what are we doing for us? Yeah,
it's funny. I was just laughing at myself. My poor time management that I've had. Like people think like when you own a business, then you take as much time, you can do whatever you want. I'm like, you'd think so. But I'm in the same scenario that those people are in, where it's like you can have as many paid vacation days as you want,
and you don't take them.
Nope. No. Gotta get this done over here.
Yeah. That drivenness. You should think about loving yourself.
I really should.
Self-care.
Hey, you know what I'll do? I'm going to go on a vacation. In fact, I'm going to go on a vacation starting this week. Look at that.
You are quick to change.
I made a decision and went for it.
You did it. Wow. You did it.
I am also, by the way, I'm so looking forward to it. I'm really hoping our good friend Forrest over there is going to be available for a commando hike because I really need that. So, all right. So let's jump on to another one. What you choose to consume mentally. I wanted to park on this really quick because part of caring for ourselves is being really deliberate about what we put into our minds and what we view, because it really sets a tone for a lot of our feelings and how we walk out a lot of our life. And so, I'm not talking about becoming religious about this where you're so staunch that you can't. Let me back up. I watched a movement when I was a kid when it came to religiousness, right? And they were so staunch about not watching something quote unquote
totally.
Bad that there's this extremism that nobody lived.
You weren't allowed to watch anything,
as a
listen
kid, you
to
can,
anything, do anything.
Because there might be something bad that affects you.
Yeah.
And we never want to create, again, people who are out of balance, living a lifestyle like that. But I remember even through my panic attack season, I purposely didn't turn on anything that felt intense or felt high drama. It was watching Bob's Burgers and football and watching home makeover shows and things where people felt happy. And I was filling my soul with a sense of joy. I was inputting things that were good. The music that I listened to, I wouldn't turn on any hard rock music.
Totally.
I love hard rock music.
Yes, you do.
I was like, I will not listen to that because that jolts my emotions. It raises my anxiety. I'm going to get myself to a place of peace. I'm going to do whatever I have to care for myself till I'm back to a place of peace and joy. And I think a lot of people, especially when we're scrolling on Instagram and things like that, I don't want to hammer on it, but you use social media and you're not being deliberate about what you're mentally having happen.
Totally.
You're just kind of like, I'm just going through it and I see whatever I see. I consume whatever I consume for the moment. And there's no thought put into it.
Yeah, there's got to be something. I always feel like happiness and joy is the thing that I get to guard and protect. And so what am I letting steal from that? What am I letting take away that? And so and I kind of do it by seasons. There's seasons that I can watch more intense shows and seasons where I can't.
Yeah.
And so it's not about a black and white rule, but I'm noticing, how do I feel after something, which is part of being connected to yourself. How do I feel after when I listen to this? How do I, even on social media, how do I feel when I'm scrolling on social media? What feelings am I having?
It's interesting because talking about that, I used to watch The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And I loved it because there was a lot of elements of trying to see people's humanity work itself out in different aspects of it, but it progressively kept getting so dark. And there was a point where it got dark enough that I was like, oh, my heart doesn't feel like I'm taking care of it.
Right.
Because the more I put in watching where their lives are going, it makes me feel hopeless and despair, and it keeps me from seeing the goodness of humanity. And there were times throughout the process where I could see, even in the darkness, the goodness of humanity in the show. I was like, well, there's hope, there's good characters. And it's like when they just at some point started destroying the goodness and the redemptive characters, I was like, I can't do that. I knew when my tap out point was for me, and I knew how it was affecting me as I was watching it. Oh, yeah. And I'm not saying The Walking Dead's a terrible thing for people to watch. I'm just using that as an example in my life.
Yeah.
And how I navigated it.
Yeah. I think, and is something causing you to have to dissociate from yourself? Is something causing you to feel discontent with your life? I've also noticed some shows I like, but I like them and enjoy them, but I'll notice I just feel a little bit more disconnected, or I feel a little bit more discontent about my life after I watch those. Yeah. And even I can think of a show that I really love right now. I have to watch it one at a time, spread out. Otherwise I start to feel the heaviness of the show in my life or that. And so it's the idea of I care about I'm saying to my heart, you matter enough that I want to help you feel good. What
will help nourish me? And
which is why I said we're about results. The result being that my soul feels taken care of.
I'll even say this just real quick to wrap up that part. if I'm in a conversation with a group of people and all they are is talking poorly of other people, it's not just that I disagree with the fact that they're talking poorly of other people. It's also, I don't like the energy. I don't like the thought process. It ends up affecting me negatively. And for my own well-being and self-care, I protect myself by removing myself and being like, I'm not going to be part of that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of that. It's not that I think I'm better than them. It's that type of dialogue and action feels toxic to my own personal soul, because then I start replicating it and acting out of it.
And if they're talking bad about other people, they'll talk bad about you.
Totally.
Like, that's just true.
Absolutely. So then it also creates more anxiety about like, what are they saying about me? And I'm like, I don't even want to be part of it. I don't care. I don't want to be in your heads.
Yes.
So last but not least, what I choose to talk about.
I mean, that's literally it's going on what you just said. Like, what we talk about, we feel emotions. Our words dictate our emotions. So the more, and again, coming from a religious institution where I was around people who had word of faith, which is you're not allowed to say anything bad. Right.
So if you were to say, I feel sick today, they're like, oh, brother, don't say that. That'll make you sick. And it's like, no, that would be denying my reality.
Yeah.
I actually feel sick. I actually feel sad.
Totally.
Right.
I think it's very important to be able to call what is true.
Yeah.
It's important for the human soul. Denying reality affects us in a deep way.
Yep.
However, there is a part of
learning how to tame your tongue.
Yeah, and learning how you process things. If you use words like my life sucks, I hate my job, all of that stuff, your emotions follow your words.
Yeah.
So, and this has been something that's been very hard for me to learn. Yeah. You have called me on it over and over and over again. So you'll say things like, if I say I hate my job, you'll be like, is that true? Or is there an aspect that you're feeling frustrated with? Like, what is actually, like, let's narrow this down. So then I might be like, I hate this one part of my job. Even just saying it that way, I hate this one part of my job, creates an emotionally different emotion. That's an emotionally different emotion. I have a different feeling come up when I say something like that.
Right. Because it's not an entire job that you hate, right? It's an aspect. Then there's room for the nuance of joy and pleasure and all the other parts of it. So you're not telling yourself, hey, everything that we're trapped in 8 to 10 hours a day is horrible. No, there's one spot that doesn't feel fun, and maybe I can learn how to adjust it.
Yes. And then you say, I mean, in marriages, we do this a lot. People will be like, he always does this, and just trying to get more specific language, something that we've both had to work on.
Yeah.
Is like, I've noticed recently a few times that it's felt like you've done this instead of you always. There's emotions that come with feelings. And so watching how we talk, watching the conversations we're having, if they're always about things we're frustrated about in life, if they're always judgment statements.
And that goes back to the sense of self-awareness. How am I dialoguing? Do I have balanced conversations? Are all my conversations day to day with person to person, heavy, dark? Are they all plastic? But I'm and happy, like it's all so good. There's no problems whatsoever. But we're
looking for balance.
We're looking for balance, and I'm aware of what I'm talking about, how I'm deliberately processing about stuff. I've tried to resculpt over and over throughout the years how I communicate, because as an 8, my verbal process could, especially historically, sound really intense.
Yes.
Right? And over the top. And it was verbal ventilation, trying to get myself to a sense of like, okay, I got all that off my chest. But I talked about it in such intense ways that I created more intensity for myself and someone else around me.
Ain't that the truth?
So I had to go, all right, how am I communicating myself? And is it also in communicating about my pain, is it still protecting my heart and my well-being?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's a very, so much of this is that nuanced holding duality, actually caring for what is it that helps my heart come alive. And that's the essence of self-care, is I'm aware that I'm a being, and I'm purposefully taking care of that being. And again, so many people are like, spa day is the only, I'm like, are you actually making sure that you're in conversations that feel good to your being?
Yeah.
Are you actually having a voice when conversations don't feel good to your being? Are you sharing your feelings? And I was thinking about having authentic connections is very important. Like when having conversations where I actually connect to something real with somebody, and it's not all surface level and superficial, but there's some kind of authenticity, that is part of self-care. Authenticity creates connection, and connection fills our souls. That's why we called it the connected life. Every human needs connection. And so the more we connect with ourselves, we connect with others, and we connect with the life right in front of us, the more we'll feel loved and our tanks will feel full.
Yeah, absolutely. So y'all, treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
Self-care.
Yeah.
Get into some self-care practices. If you've listened to this and you're going, there's a lot of areas that I'm not doing self-care. Okay, cool. It's time to begin baby steps of small corrections.
Yeah.
Right? And also, side note, go to justinabbey.com. That's abi.com. And if you have ideas for podcasts, go to our Connected Life page, fill out the form there.
Things that you want us to talk about, subjects you want us to do. And also, we want to start having more guests on our show.
Yeah.
And so if you have a story of overcoming something, or of connecting to your family, or working through like breakthrough, or even just the growth journey since you've been listening to the Connected Life, we'd love to have you write in and give us a little blurb about it, and
or maybe
with
a
chance.
Or maybe you know of a guest.
Yeah.
That you're like, I think you guys should really talk to them. There's a powerful story of their heart journey in life. We would love to know. We don't
want guests that you're trying to sell us on. Like
no,
they have
I get
like
those,
a marketing.
Like weekly marketing people, and I just send it to spam.
No.
I'm like, I will not respond to this.
If you're like, my friend has a beautiful story of redemption in this area, then we want to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And also, again, like I said earlier, Living Fully Alive, signups will begin in January, and then the class will launch in March.
Go online, sign up, and we'll
if you click on the Buy Now button for that course, we're trying to adjust it, me and my developer. But if you click on the Buy Now button, a pop-up will come up where you can fill it out, and you'll get an email when it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're really excited about it. That's the first course to take if you want to be trained to be a life consultant under us.
Yeah.
We have trained so many people to be life consultants, and we do a masterclass now for that. But the first step is Living Fully Alive, because it gives a foundational plate, a foundation to work from of humanity.
Yep. Hey, rate, review, subscribe, take your time. If you got anything out of this, the way you give back for us is just a rating and a review, sharing, telling people about it.
Yeah.
All right. Go away, everyone.